the horse's heartbeat and theirs synchronizes. So that actually very calming for them. And even if I have a volunteer, it's walking beside or leading a horse, the same thing happens and you're just so zen then. It's so good.
Welcome back to the Horseboard Ireland podcast with me, your host, Melanie Young. On today's episode of the Horseboard Ireland podcast, I'm delighted to be joined by Mary Walsh, chairperson of the Riding for the Disabled Association of Ireland. Mary, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Melanie.
Mary, many people will have heard about the RDA Ireland and maybe have a little bit of an idea of what involves or who's involved, but give us a little bit of background on the association.
Well, we're in this country for nearly 60 years, which is a long time. And I'm not a volunteer for that length of time, but I'm a volunteer for quite a long time. But we have about 40 volunteers and about 400, I beg your pardon, I said 40, 400 riders. We give riding and therapy to people every week during the school term generally, to people who have challenges, adults and children. We have about 29 groups around the country, and hopefully we're not just one centre, we're like all over the country. And we're hoping to have about 3 more groups this year, please God. That'll be brilliant. So all these people, and there's no paid executives, and we're kind of doing this riding and therapy for the last nearly 60 years. Until now, there's lots of newfangled words for that, but it's amazing and to see the difference it makes to our riders and people who come to us, but also for our volunteers. So that's generally the background, yeah.
Absolutely. It's a real sort of whole experience for everyone involved.
Yes.
I suppose you touched on the fact that you were once a volunteer in the RDA. Talk to us a little bit about how you got involved in that and kind of how your journey with the RDA has progressed.
I started about 30 years ago. I was involved in horses myself, and I was asked would I volunteer and start a group. I'm a founding member of the CALS group, and how that started was then I started as a volunteer, and then I progressed on to being we have areas, and I was an area rep for some years, and then I went on because in my other life I deliver courses for safeguarding for Sport Ireland, and then I was asked to be their welfare officer, so I was their welfare officer for a number of years, hoping that I was going to retire, but then I was fangled into being in the chairperson. And we do lots of different things for people. We're probably under the radar a lot. So we every year, for instance, just in our particular group, and this is just replicated to every group across the country, riders would ride, but not alone that, we would have a Christmas party for them. We would have a social outing as well, and social outings for our volunteers. By the way, our volunteers, it costs them money nearly to be a volunteer because they have to pay for themselves. And also, for instance, this year, just for instance, we did a huge garden party, Slane Castle, for all the families and their riders throughout the country. And that was absolutely amazing. So we had like riding games, bubble machines, they had demonstrations, they had carriage driving, they had their lunch, they had a real garden party, and they all dressed up in their gorgeous flowery dresses and all sorts of things. We had also they could lead little ponies. We had little ponies like that were like a big Labrador, and we had a unicorn, which was very successful.
Very good. Very important.
Yeah, so it's not just it's the riding, but the therapy is amazing. But we also like to do with the whole person. And as I always say about the riders, I'm not their mom's friend or their dad's friend. I'm their friend, and that's really important for them as well.
Yeah, I think so. And you touched on a really important part there. It's a real holistic experience. That it's yes, the riding is sort of. It's lynching around that, but you're creating this community, you're creating these friends for kids and this outlet and resource for families as well. And we'll come to the sort of support side for the families in a little bit. Talk to me a little bit about the structure. You've mentioned you have these sort of 28, 29 groups around the country. How do they run their services and what does that look like on a week-to-week basis?
On a week-to-week basis, what happens is we have, say, a group in a riding centre. Now, some riding centres are really good and they give, out of their centre for free when they're not using it, like during the day. And in other cases, because it's so expensive to run a riding centre now, we give donations to that. So they'd usually run in the morning or the afternoon when it's not that busy for the ride. So then what happens, there'll be a queue up for people from schools or independent, like come with their moms and dads. And what they'll do is they'll come and they'll have a riding session. And by trained coaches, you have to do several. If you're going to be a coach with us, you have to do several. You have to do your exams and you have to pass them before you can be recognised as coach. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. But what happens then, they come and then they're assessed before, say for instance, a rider is coming to us first. They don't just come and just get up on a horse. What happens is they come first, they're assessed, and the child or the young person or the young adult, they'll see the place. And in a lot of cases, what I do is I get the parent to take photographs and to take photographs of the centre and the place and what's around the place. And also then they come back again and they'll have a good take of what's going to happen to them. And then they'll ride for about 40 minutes, generally max, because that's quality control as well. And what happens then is that they'll know the volunteers and they'll have nice time. Sometimes in some places, if they might sit down in a little coffee shop, if there is one in a riding centre, and they do that with their carer or parent and have a little chat waiting to come. And then they'll go off again, and that's every week. That's what happens. Now, we evidently take a break for Christmas and, school holidays and things like that as well.
Wow, yeah. So it's a really, really concrete setup. Are these groups, I'm guessing it's sort of varies depending from group to group or centre to centre or probably child to child. Is a lot of it group-based riding lessons or are they individual? Or again, what does that generally look like?
I'll just give you an example of my own group. So for instance, on a Wednesday morning, we'd go in there before 9 o'clock, get everything ready. First ride comes in at 9 o'clock. The people that come to ride then are usually in their age range from 6 to 12:30. And what happens then is that first of all, I forgot to mention to you, they would actually come and they would have we would get them to sign up. The parent would sign for them like an application form, and then they get a doctor's stamp that they can actually ride. So they'll come in and they will actually ride, and they absolutely love coming. They're so excited when they come, and that's the first ride. So they will ride and have the chat and everything and then go off very happy. And I'll tell you the benefits in a minute about that. So then after that we would have 3 more rides, and they'd come in and they come from different centres or schools around the place. So we would finish around 1 o'clock about that. So, and sometimes when people come, they just say, I'm just not in a good form today. Say if they come off the bus, somebody had a row on the bus yesterday. And they came with each other. Then they come in and, they were apologise. Somebody said, shut up to somebody else on a bus, some of the riders.
Okay.
So then that was really important, because then they come in and then we have the chat and then they're apologising and then they're all happy because they're there and all that. So we had 4 rides. So that's what happens. And then at 1 o'clock we get a break, because you're cantry, as I said, you're walking around fields and arenas all morning. So that's really important for the volunteers as well. It's exercise. But it's also health benefits. The health benefits for the volunteers as well is really important, because lots of people nowadays they're going to gyms and they're spending fortunes on gyms. But if you come up, for instance, to one of our rides, you're walking down a lane, so you're breathing in natural antibiotics, really good for you. Not alone that, for our riders and for our volunteers, when you come and say that little person who came yesterday had a little row on the bus with their friend, well, to be all anxious. Actually, the horse's heartbeat and theirs synchronises, so that actually brings it down. So that actually it's very calming for them, and it's so beneficial. And even if I have a volunteer, it's walking beside or leading a horse, the same thing happens. See, you come and you're all stressed and you're anxious. And in no time at all, here you are, and you're just so zen then. It's so good. So it's so beneficial for both the volunteers and for our riders, evidently, for the therapy.
Yeah. And I think, we can see this is science-backed that, equine therapy works and being around animals in general works. But was there a moment that you, between volunteering and now in your role as chairperson, has there been a moment where you kind of thought, this is why we do it, or an experience or a memory that you have that really sort of solidified why you're involved, but also why this service is so important?
I'll tell you why. Because, for instance, I'm doing this for a long time, and I'd meet friends and people and they'll say, what you do in your life, whatever. And I say, well, I do this. And what is it? and you don't get paid? And I'm saying, no. And why do you not get paid? And I say, no. And I'll tell you why, because I've had so many experiences that just go, oh my God. Mm-hmm. We have a little girl that comes to us. We could replicate this experience through every group in the country. I'll just give you one. Little girl, she's 6. She comes to us with her mom because she heard about us. And she came, and I felt so sorry for her mom for the first day she came, because she actually rolled around the muck. She's profoundly autistic. She rolled around the muck in the yard, and her mom had to pick her up, and she was absolutely destroyed. Her hair is all over the place. She won't have a bobbin or nothing in it. She's non-verbal. And our mom is a single mom with two boys, okay, as well as this little girl. So we put her up for the first day, and she walks around, and she kind of gets calm, right? Now, her mom comes in and she tells me, this girl is 6, this little person is 6. She has never slept one night in 6 years. And her mom said to me, I'm so exhausted. After 3 sessions with us, she's sleeping 3 nights. After another few sessions, she's sleeping every night. Her mom comes in to me, and she absolutely just grabs me in the riding centre, and the woman is hugging me and crying. And I think, what's wrong? And she says, you cannot believe I've slept for the first time in 6 years, and this is happening, and I can spend more time with my boys. But not alone that, our little person is coming now, and she now comes in, and yesterday she's a bobbin on her hair. She's can't wait to get up. She's all excited. The minute she turns down the road near where she's coming, she knows she's coming riding. She's now verbal. She's now talking.
Oh my gosh.
She's now talking. And when we were in Slane, for instance, at that big garden party, she came in, she was all dressed up lovely. And she saw me, like there's hundreds of people there. She saw me, and she runs over and she grabs me like a limpet like this. And then she thought she was going to ride the unicorn. Oh. We're just all dressed up, and this lovely girl that had the unicorn, all, sparkly and everything. And she was so excited. And, we don't hug or grab our riders, but she came out of nowhere. So this little person is so happy, and she absolutely loves her riding, and it has done so much for her family. And as I said, her mom was so thankful for it, but that would just give you such a lift, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like, gosh, it's quite emotional when you hear, and I think that's what is so wonderful about these places. And I think unless you've experienced stuff like that, it's very hard to grasp. You can see the figures, you can see the data, the numbers that say this helps. Yeah. But stories like that, like, we're talking about real children and real families. And I think maybe that's a part that we think, okay, yes, the benefits to the kids. But that story about that lovely mother who's now sort of getting her life back a little bit through it, and the little things that we take for granted. I mean, sleep is, you can't imagine.
Yes. And can I just say to you, like last Christmas, because like she could never leave her little girl with anybody. But as a result of that, we took her mum, don't want to give names, okay? We took her mum out for a volunteer Christmas dinner, and we paid for her because she could actually get her mum to mind her little girl for that length of time. She could never do that before. Yeah. And she was just so...
The benefits extend way beyond the lesson. I think that's the huge part, that yes, the service is important, but it's actually what it gives back in their daily life. I mean, incredible story. And as you said, replicable across the country. I want to bring in Michael Fox now, whose son Leo, he attends the RDA in Navan and has had like similar wonderful experiences. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your son Leo?
Yeah, so Leo's 13 years old. He was first diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder when he was 3 years old, so quite young. And Leo's a very calm, happy in his own world, but at the same time, quite autistic traits as well.
As I've mentioned, he uses the RDA group in Navan. How did that come about, or how did you hear about Riding for the Disabled and think it might be suitable for Leo?
Yeah, so it actually came through a friend of the family who recommended it. It's something we had been lightly aware of. I mean, nobody in our family comes from any kind of equestrian background, but we had heard some radio interviews and things about equine therapy and the benefits that it could have. So we're always interested. We do a lot of different therapies with Leo. So, you're always looking to try something new to see could something have a benefit. And we were really open-minded.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to hear that it's not a horsey background that you come from or anything like that. Had you any sort of reservations about that then, putting your child on a horse? Obviously, understandably, it's all very safe and monitored, but from someone without the horse experience, did that worry you at all initially?
Not worry me, because I had a high level of kind of trust once I had met the team there, and just when you see the level of kind of education and training and that goes into it, you can only but trust. You've got up to 3 volunteers there per child, and everything is done at the child's pace, and you couldn't but trust it. Now, from my background, I've only sat up on a horse a couple of times in my life, and I don't really know a whole lot about it. But, so to me, they're very large animals, and if it isn't conducted in a safe way, it could also be, there's risk there. But that's something that never came through my mind after meeting the team. So.
Yeah, you're put at ease instantly, I think. And
Absolutely,
as you say, these things are so well organised, and having speaking to Mary about it as well, you can see that there's a very, good process and structure involved, and there's volunteers either side and all those other things, which gives you the trust and lets you. So I suppose for parents thinking of it for their kids, you would be of the impression like the horse, having no knowledge of or experience of horses prior is no issue, I guess.
Absolutely not. And the horses are quite calm as well, so, you're not observing anything that would give you any kind of concern, Yeah.
Yeah. And I think as someone who's involved in horses, they can recognise the people that are around them and cater to that. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I suppose, can you remember the first session that you brought Leo to, or any memories about that sort of day, or the first few sessions that he went to?
So we kind of move it around between myself and my wife and my parents, actually. So I wasn't actually there for the first times, but my wife actually took him in the first couple of days, and it was quite seamless and easy. He enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Of course, with Leo, you get very, very little back in terms of communication. You have to carefully ask your questions to get 1 to 2 word answers back. So you really structure your questions to get a yes or a no, and you work that way with them. Mm-hmm. So we got a thumbs up from him anyway on the first couple of days. Yeah,
that was worth more than anything, I'm sure. You knew well that was a good thing.
Oh yeah, well that's a big deal, because there's if he doesn't like something, that's it. He's not doing it, and we won't force him either. But yeah, absolutely.
What sort of changes do you see in Leo post these sessions, or did it take a while for it to sort of, you guys start seeing the benefit outside of it? Because that's something that Mary discusses a lot, and that, yes, there's obviously the service of when they're on the horse for the hour or so, but it's the benefits that they reap for hours and maybe days afterwards.
We saw actually quite quick results from this, and you're always careful about what you attribute to it, but there's just way too many coincidences that come at once. With Leo, you don't see everything up front. It's almost like you're surprised by things. Somebody tells you something that he said to them, or he sent them a message, and you're like, hold on a second, show me this. So the first thing we noticed was my sister-in-law received a really long text exchange from him, maybe 20 messages. I hadn't even known him to send any text messages, apart from if he had achieved something in a game, he'd take a screenshot and send it to somebody.
Okay.
But this was a back and forth, with a conversation, asking questions about, I think it could have been a gift he wants for his birthday or something like that, and back and forth. And, we were amazed. This was probably about 3-4 weeks after he had started. Then, just his general communication, the type of questions he was asking, started to get a little bit more complex. I'm not saying, he started speaking, fluently at all, but it was probably later into the year we started to discover other things. So teacher at school showed us the poetry he was writing at school. We were like,
oh my God,
no, Leo doesn't write poetry. Sure enough, he does. You see, there's a lot of stuff inside that we just don't realize starts to come out. And, we can only attribute it to some catalyst, some change. And, because so much happened in such a short space of time after he started equine therapy, we believe that is what has been the catalyst, really.
Yeah. What does it mean to you to sort of see him, I guess, get this support and then subsequently thrive off it?
As parents of kids with special needs, we're all doing everything we can. We're flat out trying to do stuff, you don't know if you're doing right. You don't know if you're doing wrong. So when you hit on something that has such obvious results, like it means a huge amount to you because you know you're doing something right. And we don't actually know most of the time if the therapies we're doing, if the time, the lengths of the country we're driving are actually going to have any difference or if they're just going to meet their milestones at their own pace. But when you do something that actually you can see such tangible results, yeah, I think that really means a lot. But just in general, to be able to communicate more with Leo, and we're not talking about having, nice conversations. We're talking about being able to ask Leo what he wants to eat, how he feels about something. So, in the last week, I've been talking to Leo about, riding. We were there only yesterday. I was in the car with him talking to them, and I was asking him what he likes about riding, and he usually likes to shut down conversation quite quick. I'll give you your answer, and I'm going back to what I'm doing. So, yes, but I wanted to find out from him, so he, what did he like about the horse? So he focused on Henry, the horse that he always rides. He loves Henry. And so consistency is very important as well for Leo. So, he likes that he's soft and warm. And I was quick to kind of move on from that topic because I want to know how he felt. But I started to realize, actually, that's an important point, the tactile feel of a horse, the warmth of the horse. And they're sitting quite close, to the horse in the method that they use. I asked him what else he feels, and he said calm. Now, I haven't known Leo to really explain a feeling like that. It's usually really functional things. So for Leo to say, I feel calm, I've never heard him use that term before. So, I think it's really nice. Yeah.
It's wonderful, I guess, they're being given the space to think about these things and feel these things. I guess anyone can struggle to express how they feel in any given moment, so I can only imagine how careful he is with his words or what he decides to answer to or not to come up with these kind of phrases and things. I mean, they're skills for life. I think that's the really important part of this sort of using equine therapy, that yes, he's learning the skill to sit on a horse and all those sort of things, but they're transferable skills to other areas, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he never really showed much interest in animals before that. There's certain things like he's also got ARFID, which is avoidant resistant food intake disorder. So he's got a really extremely limited diet, and almost a fear of foods as well. Okay. So we keep him to quite a limited diet. He won't touch a lot of vegetables, and I'm talking about if we're in the supermarket, we have to separate them and cover them almost, and we'll skip through that part of the supermarket. That's how bad, yeah. But he will hold it when he's feeding Henry.
Okay.
So, it's, to be able to cross that barrier that allows him to be able to hold a piece of cabbage, a carrot, anything like that, because it's for Henry, all of a sudden it's not a problem anymore. So, there's all these benefits. You don't even think, you would never think that horse riding would be maybe a route to help him deal with a fear of certain foods,
Yeah.
So,
it's wonderful. It's sort of, we could chat for hours about, I'm sure, all the different kind of things that you've experienced through this and he's experienced through him, I guess. You mentioned earlier about how that there's sort of volunteers all around and, it's a very sort of safe environment. The volunteers and staff, I guess, and coaches, they're very passionate about what they do. Tell us about are there some of the people that you meet there? I mean, you put your trust in them to look after him during these sessions, which is huge for a parent to do.
It is, yeah, but fairly quick, when you put your child, because we go to a lot of different things and straight away if it's a well-run event or if it's because regardless of the level of training, that volunteers are hugely important to everything to do with special needs here in Ireland.
Yeah.
And we've got a fantastic kind of ethos of volunteering in general, but the kind of volunteering that's required in this is quite unique, I would say, and I don't know a huge amount about it. But on the outside looking in, it requires a certain type of person who has a huge amount of patience and empathy, and can take things at the child's pace and isn't trying to push too much on to achieve certain goals. Like, we got to get you doing this. It's really child focused, which really suits Leo. But the volunteers are fantastic. Absolutely. When we go to any of the events, recently there was a big event in Slane, and you really just got to see the amount of people who are involved in this. Like, we only get to see the Navan part and all the great people who are involved there, and they're wonderful. But then you go to an event at Slane, you say, wow, God, there's so many families being impacted here. There's so many people who are giving their time, coming to the length and breadth of the country to help people. And yeah, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think maybe something that a lot of people wouldn't think of, or maybe you haven't thought of, is I think the volunteers get as much out of it as well. And something Mary speaks about quite passionately is that like people who are there, there's a community. This is a whole holistic approach. This is not just we need, let's say, Leo to get to a certain milestone or whatever. This is just an experience, and we want it to be positive, and it's positive for everyone. Michael, look, it's been lovely chatting. And as I said previously, we could chat for hours, I'm sure, about all the lovely stories and your experiences with it. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experience and I guess Leo's experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to tell this story.
Again, Mary, like lovely stories. You've met Michael, you know Leo, and speaking about that little child before. Again, this is probably, again, back to that moment we think of this is why we do it. It's these sort of stories why we keep going. But as incredible a service this is, I'm sure there are challenges involved. I mean,
huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things, what we've done several new things or things trying to bring it forward. But one of the things we would like to do is we have a fund now for sponsor a rider. So we operate during the day when, it's not too busy for the riding centres. But you can sponsor a rider for €200 a year. Okay. So we're hoping to get funding from companies and corporations and international corporations so that they can fund a rider, so they can go to an approved riding centre out of hours. So say, for instance, they're going to secondary school and their school don't allow them to come at that particular time. We have actually some of our guys, though, do come, and where the school recognise the therapy. And it's part of their PE, for instance, like their physical education as well. But the challenges would be then to get more volunteers, and because I don't think we're out there enough to get more volunteers to actually, because the benefits for the volunteers, never mind, like as some of our volunteers would say, you get 1,000 times more out of it than you get ever put into it. But the point being as well is that we're hoping to get more funding and make more riding centres aware of what we do as well. For instance, during COVID, we gave a donation to each riding centre that actually allows us to use, or we actually pay some riding centres. I don't know whether I said that to you. We actually would rent because it's so expensive. Some people give their riding centres free, but we also gave them €1,000 for feed for their horses. So they're so important because we're really into horse welfare. It is so important that the horses we use, that we treat them as celebrities because they do a fabulous job. They're just amazing. So they are. So that's one of the things. So volunteers would be one thing. And then funding would be another thing. And just to get the recognition out there. And the point about our organisation is we're not money orientated. So for the people to come and volunteer, so we've no money agenda. Any money we get goes entirely for the riders. So for none of our executives, we've no paid executives. So that's really important. So just to more volunteers and make people aware that what we do and the benefits around that. You don't have to come every week. Like, for instance, I have a good few volunteers in my group where we operate in Navan, but they don't have to come every week. So it's all really well organised. Also, if you're a volunteer, like every volunteer is Garda vetted, they have safeguarding. They also get training. They also do CPD. If you can train up as a coach, and if you're going to be training up, we have 3 levels of coaching. If you train up as a coach, you have to do 20 hours as a trainee coach, and then there's a syllabus for each one. And what happens then, you're assessed and there's exam for each one. So even, for instance, if you're going to be a level 3 coach, you would have to do a physiotherapy exam. So you'd have to know your bits and pieces. So it's not just, we're just turning up on a Wednesday morning or something and then just doing it. No, it's professional with a small p. So I think that's really important that people realise out there, we're not just there to have a cup of coffee. We're there to do a job. And I just always, when people actually start coming, they get passionate about it, and they're thinking, oh my God, I could give $1 million if I had it in the morning to this organisation, but if I give an hour, I feel I've given $1 million. So it's really important. So to get also for that, what we would love to be as people to recognise that we're out there, because I think we're kind of a bit under the radar, as I said, that people realise the benefits, not alone. Our mission would be is to provide as much riding and therapy for as many people as we can, children and adults, but also for people who can't afford, because it's quite expensive. So people coming to us, they don't have to give money, They can give a little donation if they like, but it's not money driven. So it doesn't cost you a fortune or anything. It doesn't. So lots of those, like that single mom with her 3 children, do you think she could afford like a big amount of money every week for one of her children? Not a chance. So the difference for her is amazing. So that's our challenge, is trying to get volunteers being aware, but also then say companies and that, the way you're always given to charities, but you don't realise how much of that money you give is going to the actual people on the ground. Well, every cent that we get goes to that. And for instance, just to give you an example, we ride some of our guys on saddles, but pads. They love the pads. And they're quite expensive to get the really good ones. And we have some guys that have ridden and can do a load of things on a saddle. If I ask them, they're quite chatty. If I ask them, what's your favourite thing to ride on a saddle? They'll go for the pad every time. But like we bought 3 pads, very expensive. Like I think pads and sourcing and that, 4 of them, particular ones, and like they were like over 1,000 for the 3, so they were. But they absolutely love them.
What is it that they prefer from the pad versus the saddle, do you think?
I can tell you that what they prefer about it is because you get the movement much better. Okay?
Yeah.
So on a horse walking, they can't recreate this in a physiotherapist clinic. It goes forward and back, but it also goes side to side at the same time. So that movement is so, as they will keep telling you all the time, it's so calming. Mm-hmm. It's lovely. But also, say we have riders, and a lot of our riders would be tight. Do you understand what I mean by tight? Their muscle would be tight, be like spastic. So I put them on his pad, and the next thing is, it's just like taking chewing gum out of a fridge.
Yeah.
Their muscle will just relax, and they find that really good. So one of our riders just explained it to us, and I'll just tell you what an occupational therapist who comes with some of our riders yesterday, but one of our riders said he loves his horse because it's soft, comforting, and it makes him calm.
Wow.
Makes him calm. Now, this is a guy who's profoundly autistic. Yesterday, we have an occupational therapist coming out, and she said to me, Mary, since I started coming out here, I can't believe it, because the guys that come out here, and they said that any skill we give them, like, embeds better and lasts longer. But also, we have another girl who's really stressed. So when she comes out, she said it is so good for her, because when she goes back for the next 3 or 4 days, she's so calm. If you are autistic and you hear all these noises in the world, it's like putting an electric drill in your head 24 hours a day. So you can imagine the difference that would make for a person on more than one day.
Yeah. And I think, as you said, that calm environment of these groups that, there's no rushing around. It's not a big stressful experience. It's giving them, I feel like it's giving them the time and the space to really think, and recognize it. And I think that must be huge for, any of us to try recognize our feelings within the moment is tough. So I can't imagine what, being able to hear them say that calm and comfortable. Is that not, like, you can't get better feedback than that, in a sense, for something that they're doing.
And as one parent said to me, because her daughter, who was absolutely gorgeous girl, she's about 14, and she's the most beautiful child ever. And if we talk to her, like, it takes her about a half an hour to kind of process it and come back. And she said, you know something? She said, she loves weather. And I said, what? And because we ride down a long lane and round a gallop and then back and whatever. And she loves, and they all love weather. Like, like that mist in their face. Yeah. They love that. And so when because a lot of kids with challenges, they're in a school or a room all the time. They don't get that opportunity, to go out and listen to the birds and whatever. So I'll just tell you, one day we were walking down and she just loves the weather and she's going like that. And the next thing is she sees a cow over in the field and she starts singing, Old MacDonald had a farm. Oh my moo here. So, and that took her about a half an hour, like, for that just to process. But she was so zen. So she was. Yeah. So her mom said, because she gets very stressed sometimes, and that actually is so beneficial to her for the week. She can't wait to come back the next week. Yeah.
It's incredible. You've mentioned the horses are the celebrities and they're treated like that. I can only imagine these kids love them, but also the people that are looking after them. What sort of training goes involved, or how do you pick suitable horses for this? Because I'm imagining different riders with different needs will need sort of different sizes, shapes, like temperaments of horses. What's that process like?
Well, the process would be that we assess each person and for the horse to be going, just like you and I, if you were riding, whatever. The other thing is, I'll just give you an example. We have this cob donated from a friend of mine called Paddy, and Paddy is as mad as brush when he's out with an able-bodied person. He has hunted side saddle, he has done everything, pony club, he's done everything, and he's now donated to us because he's just like a big gent. Okay, he's like a 15 1 or 2 hand cob, and when our riders come and get on him, he is like a big fluffy Labrador, so he is. And he just, he goes with the pace nearly of the person. Do you get me? Because, and then if we have somebody that's really stressed, Paddy, he'll just take it really easy. So some horses just absolutely they fit in. So we generally, what we would do is, for instance, wouldn't have too big a horses because it's really difficult if one of our guys came down off that or to hurt themselves or hurt you, because we usually have 2 sidewalkers depending on the challenge the person has. But some horses we pick and assess them first that they would actually be okay. And generally, we just give you an example. We have the girl and she's Downs and she's quite verbal and she's a very good rider and everything. So sometimes she would just, if say we had something new, we would introduce the horse really slowly and maybe she'd ride. And then you'd know whether that horse, wants to do that or not.
Yes.
The signs. Ears back.
Yeah. And I think that's like you're so innately aware of the horse's traits and characteristics and everything that you can see very clearly if they don't like it, but you can also see very clearly when they do. Like that example of that horse being able to, lots of listeners I'm sure have been in the experience where a horse and a small child, and how the horse reacts way differently with a small child, and you think, oh gosh, he's going to be too buzzy, and then all of a sudden he's just lets the child pet him or whatever. So I can imagine it's a similar setup in your groups.
I had recently a little girl, and she's Downs and she's very buzzy, and she's about 6. She's really buzzy, and I'm thinking, oh my God, when she came first, what's going to happen here? She's going to buzz everybody out of it, literally gets up on this horse. Okay, we have, because she's small, and we put her up on this. The 2 of them, you could just see the horse go, and she goes, and her mum was saying to me, oh my God.
Yeah, and it's funny, sometimes it's physical signs, I'm sure, and sometimes it's slightly different, but yes. Yeah.
But hopefully our challenges would be that, like, we'd love if we could get corporations or our companies or even just people. Like, people leave us legacies in their will. That's some of the things how we keep operating.
Yeah.
Because people hear about us or their family have, and then say they would give a donation. For instance, when we were running the garden party in Slane, people were so good. Like, we had pizzas for them and everything, really organic, all sorts of carry on, gorgeous food and everything. And we just asked people, we're just really doing this. It's not for, by the way, our volunteers had to pay in. The families and the children didn't.
But I'm sure your volunteers have no problem with that because they see the good work that's being done. It's funny. I think anyone who sees it in real life will have no problem with something like that because they know the benefits of it.
Well, they see it, and as I said, we take non-horsey people. We love non-horsey people because sometimes horsey people, like, the way if you're riding all your life, you have bad habits yourself.
You prefer the blank canvas, Mary, to train them in.
Sometimes a blank canvas is really good, And they will say, well, I don't lead, and I said, that's okay. We wouldn't ask you to do that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, everything is tailored both to rider and volunteer.
Yes,
I'm sure.
And being honest, we have really good setups in our groups. Like, we will have an organiser, we'll have a chairperson, we'll have a treasurer, we'll have a safeguarding person, we'll have children's officer. It's all we got an award for governance, by the way, 2 years ago.
Wow!
So everything is accounted and everybody's insured, and it's 110% above board. Everything.
Yeah.
So that's the record I think people don't really realise that we have at the back. Like, as I said, it's professional with a small p.
Yes, absolutely. Well, after this, they will realise, Mary, if there is someone listening and they want to get involved, whether it's as a volunteer or a donor, or they want to know more, where can we direct them? What should they do next?
We have a website, RDA Ireland.org, and we also have on Instagram and on Facebook as well. But just if they Google any of that, they will get our numbers and they can actually phone up or whatever. On our website, we have an interactive map, so you can see where different centres are around the country. So you just put your finger on the thing and you'll get, and then all the information is on our website about, who's in the areas, who's not in the areas, all that as well. So it's really easy if you just, nowadays everybody can Google something and just look it up. So, and we were delighted to hear from anybody because, and by the way, I can also say, even in my group, and I know from groups around would you like a big family? For instance, we had lots of volunteers in our group that had challenges in their lives, like their husband died or their partner died or, they had cancer, and they were like supported through that. So it's a really important organisation for the volunteers, the community, the volunteers, as well as, and lots of people out there were thinking, I'd never be able to do that. Yes, you would. We'd find a spot for you.
Yes.
Yes. You can make the coffee.
There's a place for everybody.
It's obligatory that you have coffee or tea and chocolate biscuits for volunteers.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, I love that. Just before we finish up, Mary, is there one message or sort of thing you'd like to get across to our listeners to take away about the RDA? Maybe it's its values, or one sort of final message that you'd like to share with them?
I think for one final message would be, we have really good standards. We have really good protection for you if a volunteer or for our riders. But not alone that, we would really love a little bit support in monetary or any otherwise they could have. So a company might help us do our social media. A company might help us, with some equipment, even a donation to buy more equipment or to do something or to rent a premises, for lease a premises for our riders in a particular centre. As I said, it's really expensive to keep riding centres going, and we so want to support them. We so want to support them because without them, we wouldn't be able to operate.
Absolutely, Mary. Look, I mean, the passion coming from you, I think all our listeners will agree. It's incredible. And the stories we've heard, and I'm sure that's not even a fraction of them. But thank you so much for joining us. We will leave all the websites in the show notes and links and everything there. But thank you so much, Mary, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie.
If you would like to find out more about what we've covered in this episode, you'll find notes, links and more in the description area of this podcast. Do remember to press follow for our show so you can get the next episode automatically. And do share it with a friend with an interest in the industry. Just tell them to search Horsesport Ireland on their podcast app. Our podcast today was produced by dustpod.io and brought to you by horsesportireland.ie.